Assalamu alaikum, students.
Walaikum salam, Doctor. Doctor, can you hear me?
Okay, I think we'll start now.
Okay.
Okay. Today we'll discuss about one of the first topic of the anatomy in this urogenital system, that is the anatomy of kidney and the ureters. The anatomy of the kidney as well as the ureters. These are the objectives for you for this lecture. Describe the normal structure of the kidneys regarding their side, shape, surfaces, and factors supporting their fixation. Then describe kidneys relations. Then describe blood supply, lymphatic drainage, and innervation of the kidney. Then describe the course of the ureter and identify the site of ureteric constriction. Okay, so these are the objectives we'll cover today. As you know, the kidney is a very important excretory organ, and it is reddish brown in color. Later we'll see. So if you see here, so these are the kidneys on either side. So they are reddish brown in color, and they are the most important excretory organs. Okay, and they lie behind the peritoneum. So what do you mean by lie behind the peritoneum? They are retroperitoneal. They are retroperitoneal. So that's why they say that it lies behind the peritoneum. Means it is retroperitoneal in position on the posterior abdominal wall on either side of the vertebral column. So as you can see in this picture, on this is the vertebral column. So this is the picture seen from behind, so that you can appreciate the kidney from behind. So it can be easily approached from behind easily. Okay. So if you want to do any surgeries on the kidney, then you have to cut open the posterior abdominal wall because it is retroperitoneal behind the peritoneum. So it can be easily approached from behind. So this is a picture showing the kidneys from behind, and here on either side of the vertebral column. And the center is the vertebral column. On either side, you can see the kidney, and they extend from the level of T12 to L3. Okay, so if you see the 12th thoracic vertebra, extend from the 12th thoracic vertebra up to the third lumbar vertebra. Okay, so from the 12th thoracic vertebra up to the third lumbar vertebra. So it extends from the T12 to L3. The right kidney lies slightly lower than the left due to the large size of the right lobe of the liver. As you can see here, the right kidney. So this is the right kidney here. Okay. So here on the top, there will be liver, which will be occupying most of this quadrant. So it will push the right kidney slightly downwards. So always you find the right kidney is slightly lower than the left. On the left side, we have the stomach. Okay. So it is not of much of obstruction. So the left kidney will be in position, but the right kidney will be slightly below. Okay, the right kidney is slightly lower than the left due to the large size of the right lobe of the liver. The upper border of the right kidney is at the level of the 11th intercostal space. So if you can see here, so this is the 11th rib, this is the 12th rib, this is the 12th rib, this is the 11th rib, and so here also we can see this 11th rib and 12th rib. And if you see, the upper border of the right kidney is in the 11th intercostal space. Just below the 11th rib will be the 11th intercostal space. So this is the 11th intercostal space where the right kidney is present. Okay, the upper border of the right kidney. Okay, but the upper border of left kidney is at the 11th rib. See the difference between the right and the left, because the left kidney is slightly upper. So the left kidney is the upper border of the left kidney is at the 11th rib, and the upper border of the right kidney, because it is slightly lower, it is in the 11th intercostal space. The 11th intercostal space is below the 11th rib. Okay, this is the space, 11th intercostal space. So the right kidney will be in the 11th intercostal space, and the left kidney will be at the 11th rib. This is the difference between the two sides. This is very important clinically, especially for the surgeons when they are operating. Okay, later we'll study that part. Okay, coming to the shape, it is bean shape. As you can see, it looks like a bean. Okay, so it is called a bean shape. The size almost 12 centimeters in length. So if you see here, so it will be 12 centimeters in length, 6 centimeters in breadth, and 3 centimeters in the thickness. Okay, so the length is uh, double than the breadth, and the breadth is double than the thickness. So it is 12 into 6 into 3. Okay, so that is the size of the kidney. Coming to the two borders, there are two borders for the kidney. The lateral border is convex. As you can see here, this is the kidney. So the lateral border of the kidney is convex. And the medial border, this is the medial. The medial means toward the center. Lateral means away from the center. So the medial border, which is toward the center, is concave. So the medial border is concave, and it has a hilum. Hilum. What do you mean by hilum? Every organ has a hilum where the structures will be either entering or coming out. As you can see here, the renal artery and the pelvis, everything is coming, entering or coming out. Okay, so all the structures for the kidney, they don't enter from all the sides, but at a particular region called as the hilum. Hilum. Okay, so all the structures are entering at the hilum. So you can see the hilum at the medial border or the concave border, having the hilum of the kidney that extends into the renal sinus. Later we'll see the renal sinus. The structures arranged at this hilum, okay, that is very important to identify the side of the kidney, whether it is right side or the left side. Okay, so that is very important. So that can be made out by seeing the structures. Okay, whether it is right kidney or left kidney. Okay, so that is by seeing the most anterior structure. Here will be the renal vein. Here it has been removed. No, there is no renal vein. So the most anterior will be renal, so that you can appreciate the posterior structures. So the most anterior will be the renal vein. Then we have the renal artery. This is the renal artery entering the kidney. Then behind that is the renal pelvis. So the structures from anterior to posterior side will be, the most anterior will be the renal vein, then the renal artery, and the most posterior will be the renal pelvis. Okay. Now coming to the two surfaces, the kidney has, we have seen the two borders, lateral border and medial border. And now coming to the surface, anterior surface. What you are seeing here, this is the anterior surface. Which you saw behind, this is the posterior surface. So it has two surfaces, anterior and the posterior. Behind will be the posterior surface. Okay, and it has two poles. So the upper pole or the superior pole, where we can see the suprarenal gland. Suprarenal gland, it is called as the superior pole or the upper pole. Then we have the inferior pole or the lower pole. So it has two borders, two surfaces, and two poles. The suprarenal gland, as I said, lies on the east superior pole, as you can see on both the sides of the kidney. So you can see on the superior pole, we can see the occupation. It is occupied by the suprarenal gland. Now coming to the coverings of the kidney. Kidney is a very important structure, hence it is well protected. It is well protected by very important coverings. The most important, which is inside, will be the fibrous capsule. So this is the kidney here. There is a cross section taken in the abdomen, okay, where the kidney is present. So if you can see here, this is the kidney, this is the abdominal wall, and here is the kidney, this is the vertebra, and the vessels are here. So if you see, this is the cross section of the kidney. Cross sections means if you take it cross section like this. Okay. So when you see the cross section of the kidney, the most outer covering here is this brownish structure, which is around, totally adherent to the kidney. This is called as the fibrous capsule. Fibrous capsule for the kidney. Then outside that, we have a thick pad of fat. This is called as the perinephric fat. Perinephric fat. Okay, so this is the next covering. Then we have the third covering called as the renal fascia. A very important covering again. This is called as the renal fascia. So this is the renal fascia. It is the condensation of the extraperitoneal connective tissue. You see here the extraperitoneal tissue has come here, condensed, and it forms a covering for the kidney. It has two layers, as you can see here. So there is two layers, which is divided into two layers, anterior layer as well as the posterior layer. Both the layers fuse together at the lateral border. As you can see, both this anterior and posterior layer, they fuse at the lateral border, not at the medial border, but only at the lateral border of the kidney. and become continuous with the transverse salis fascia. It continues as the transverse salis fascia in the anteroabdominal wall. This fascia also encloses the suprarenal gland. This renal fascia not only covers the kidney but also the above structure which is above. This is the suprarenal gland, which is also covered by this renal fascia. Then the outermost covering will be the pararenal pad of fat, also called as the paranephric fat. Okay, so here you can see this is the paranephric fat. So it lies external to the renal fascia and forms the part of the retroperitoneal fascia. So these are the important coverings of the kidney from inside to outside. The first one is the fibrous capsule, which is nothing but the condensation of the kidney tissue. Then outside that there is a pad of fat. This is called as the perirenal fat, or also called as perinephric fat. Okay, nephric and renal are the same names for the kidney. Kidney is also called as the nephric, or it is also called as renal. Everything is same. Okay, so it is perinephric fat or renal fat. Okay, then outside that we have the two layers of the renal fascia. Renal fascia. Then the outermost will be the pararenal fat or the paranephric fat. These are the four coverings of the coverings of the kidney. Very important coverings. Now coming to some important relations, especially the posterior relations. Posterior relations, how it is related posteriorly. Okay, it is related posteriorly. It will be lying on the posterior abdominal wall, right? So it is well related to some of the important structures. The first most important will be the, as I said, which is clinically important, will be the 12th rib. So it is related to both the kidneys to the 12th rib. Okay, with a slight difference, as I told before. Then we have the costodiaphragmatic pleural recess. On either side, a part of the pleura will enter here. Okay, on either side. So that also forms a relation for the kidney. Kidney will be presenting here. So it has been removed so that you can appreciate the structures in the posterior abdominal wall. Then there are four important muscles which will be forming the posterior relation for the kidney. One is the diaphragm. As you can see, this is the diaphragm. It is coming down. It forms the posterior. Then we have the psoas major muscle. This is the psoas major. Joins with the iliacus, and together it is called a iliopsoas below in the thigh. So here it is the psoas major muscle. Then we have the quadratus lumborum. As you can see, it is on both the sides. I'm showing on one side, but it is on both the sides. Here this is the diaphragm. Here this is the psoas major. Here the quadratus lumborum. And the most lateral will be the transverse salis abdominis. So it has not been shown here. So this is the transverse abdominis muscle. Okay, so these are the four muscles which form the posterior relation for the kidney. Then there are three important nerves. Okay, one is the subcostal nerve, which will come below the 12th rib. Then iliohypogastric as well as the ilioinguinal nerve. These are not shown in these pictures, but these nerves are also forming the important posterior relation. So if you have any doubts at any time, just stop me and try to repeat, or if you have any questions, you can ask. Okay, anytime. Coming to the anterior relation, the posterior relation on either side, both the right and left kidney is same, but the anterior relation is different for the right kidney and for the left kidney. Okay, so anteriorly it will differ according to the site. As I said, the right kidney will be different from that of the left kidney. Right kidney will be on the top, it is same for both the kidneys. The suprarenal gland will be present. So on the right side will be right suprarenal gland, on the left side will be the left suprarenal. Then a very important relation for the kidney will be the liver on the right side. So here will be the liver. Then we have the second part of the duodenum, which will be passing here. Okay. Then we have the right colic flexure of the colon. Then we have the small intestine, points of the small intestine. All these are the relations anteriorly for the right kidney. For the left kidney, it slightly differs. As I said, on the top it will be the left suprarenal gland. Then below that, instead of here it was liver, here it will be the stomach. Stomach as the relation for the left kidney. Then we have the spleen and the pancreas. Very important relation would be here is the spleen on the lateral side, and the pancreas, tail of pancreas will come here. Then we have the left coliflexure as well as the descending colon and the coils of the jejunum. Okay, part of the small intestine. So these are some of the relations anterior we have. So as I said, the posterior relations will be same for both the sides of the kidney, but anterior relations differ on right and left. Now coming to the structures of the kidney, structure of the kidney. Structure of the kidney in more detail we will study in histology. Here briefly we'll discuss what can be seen by the naked eye. If you cut the kidney and if you use a hand lens, what structures you can see, that we'll discuss. More details you will study when you study the histology. Each kidney has an outer cortex and an inner medulla. As you can see here, there is the two layers of the kidney. This is the outer cortex and this is the inner medulla. So there are two layers, outer cortex as well as the inner medulla. So the kidney is broadly divided into outer cortex and inner medulla. The cortex is reddish brown in color. So the cortex will be reddish brown and the medulla will be paler. Here it is has been shown reverse, but this is just the picture. So they have shown in different colors. But the cortex will be darker and the medulla will be paler. Okay. The medulla is inner pillar area that is made up of 10 to 12 conical masses called as renal pyramids. So there will be in the medulla, there will be 10 to 12 conical pyramids, pyramid-like structure. These are called as the renal pyramids with the apex directed towards the hilum. Okay. The base of each pyramid is directed towards the cortex. As you can see, this is the base of the this pyramids. It is directed toward the cortex and its apex toward the renal papillae. As I said, the apex will be directed towards this part. These are called as renal papillae. Okay, we'll talk about that. Okay. The cortex extends into the medulla between the adjacent pyramids as the renal column. As you can see here, the cortex is here. So, but a part of it extends between the pyramids. So, this is called as the renal columns. So, all these terms you should know. What is renal column? What is renal pyramid? Renal papillae, and the cortex, medulla, and all those things. Okay. Now coming to the renal cortex is divided into two parts. The cortical arches or lobes forming the caps at the base of the renal pyramid. Near the base, this is the base of this, the apex of the renal pyramid, and this is the base. So this is the renal papillae, and here is the base. Toward the base, this cortex, this is called as the cortical arches or lobules. And in between, these are called as renal columns. So these are the cortical arches or lobules, and these are the renal columns that lie between the pyramids. Between the pyramid, this is the renal column. Each pyramid, together with the O-line cortex arches, forms a lobe of the kidney. So the kidney has lobes. So each lobe is made up of the the renal pyramid with the cortex or the cortical arch. Cortical arch with the renal pyramid together, this is called as one lobe of the kidney. One lobe of the kidney. Renal sinus is a space that extends into the kidney from the hilum. Okay, so if you see here, there is spaces here. So these are called as renal sinus. Renal sinus are nothing but the spaces. So these spaces will not be empty, they will be containing the branches of the renal artery. As you can see here, the branches, this is the renal artery, this is the renal vein. So as you can see in this picture, the most anterior structure will be the renal vein, then the renal artery, and behind that will be the renal pelvis. Okay, so here is the branches of the renal artery. So this is the renal artery and its branches are here. These are, then we have the tributaries of the renal vein. So these are the renal veins and these are small branches. Branches of the veins are called as tributaries. Okay, then we have the renal pelvis. Renal pelvis, this is the renal pelvis here. Okay, all these are present within the renal sinus. The renal pelvis divides into two or three major calyces. So this is the renal pelvis. So this divides into two or three major calyces. This is called as a major calyx. Calyx, single is calyx, plural is calyces. So this is the major calyx. So two to three. Okay. So then, which in turn divides into two or three minor calyx. So each major, this is one major calyx, it divides into two or three again minor calyx. And within this minor calyx, the renal papillae, two to three renal papillae will open into each minor calyx. Okay, so this is how it is formed. Let me take your attendance before I proceed further. Okay. Coming to the arterial supply, blood supply of the kidney, it is supplied, as you know, by the renal artery. This is the renal artery. The renal artery arises from the aorta, as you saw in the previous pictures, if you did observe. So we saw here. Okay, here also. Here we can see here. This is the aorta, and this will give the renal artery. So renal artery is a branch from directly from the abdominal aorta. Okay. So the renal artery arises from the aorta at the level of the second lumbar vertebra, and it divides into five segments. If you see here, it divides into five segments. This is the renal artery, divides into one, two, three, four, and one behind. This is the fifth. So these are the five branches segment. These are called as segmental arteries that enter the hilum of the kidney. Four in the front. Four will be one, two, three, and the fourth will be in the front, and the fifth will be behind. Okay, so four in front and behind, the one will be behind the renal pelvis, which are distributed to different segments of the kidney. So they will go to different segments of the kidney. The lower artery arises from the east segmental artery, if you see here. So these are the segmental arteries. Okay, so they have specific names. Superior segmental artery. This is the anterior segmental artery. Then we have the anti-inferior segmental artery. So this is the inferior segmental artery, and we have, this is the posterior segmental artery. So like this, they are divided into five segmental arteries. Okay, each segmental artery divides into lobar artery. Lobar artery arises from each segmental artery. Okay, and from each renal pyramid, each lobar artery gives of two to three interlobar arteries. If you see here, it is this is the lobar artery, and this is divided into two or three interlobar arteries. The interlobar arteries run toward the cortex on each side of the renal pyramid. The interlobar arteries use of the arcuate arteries. You see here, they will go further, and they will be dividing into arcuate. They are arch, so that's why they're called as arcuate arteries near the base of the pyramids. Then the arcuate arteries use of several interlobular arteries. They will be giving many multiple interlobular arteries. These are the small branches. These are called as the interlobular arteries. The interlobular arteries use of the efferent glomerular arteriole. So this will give the efferent glomerular arteriole, which will be very important structure in the nephron. Okay, which will be supplying. So this will be the branching of the whole of the renal artery into the smallest branch, that is the afferent glomerular arteriole. Now coming to the venous drainage. Venous drainage is into the inferior vena cava. This is the inferior vena cava through the renal veins. These are the renal veins which will draining into the inferior vena cava. This is the venous drainage of the kidney. Renal vein emerges from the hilum in front of the renal artery. As you can see here, renal artery is behind and the renal vein is in the front. So the most anterior structure will be the renal vein. So it emerges in front of the renal artery and drains into the inferior vena cava. It drains into the inferior vena cava. If you are observed in this picture, you can see the left renal vein is longer. It is longer compared to the right renal vein, because the inferior vena cava is more towards the right side. So it is more towards the right kidney. So the left right renal vein is shorter compared to the left renal vein, which is longer. The left renal vein receives the left gonadal and left suprarenal veins also. If you see here, this is the left gonadal. Gonadal veins means the veins from the testis or the ovary. So these are the gonadal veins which will be drained into the left renal vein, as well as even the left suprarenal vein also drains into this, and then because it is a long vein, so all these veins drain into this vein. Okay. Now coming to the branching of the renal artery and the vein, as we saw, the renal artery divides into segmental artery. Segmental artery divides into interlobar. Then we have the arcuate arteries. Then we have the interlobular arteries. Then the afferent arterioles. If you see here, so this is the glomerulus, and here you can see the afferent arteriole. Okay, different arterial afferent, which will be present here, which will be supplying the glomerulus. Then it goes to the glomerulus. Then we have the efferent arteriole. This is the area where they supplied by the artery and also drained by the artery, not the vein. Okay, this is called the efferent arteriole. Then it drains into the peritubular capillaries. So these are small veins, peritubular plexus from here. Efferent arteriole, it drains into the peritubular capillaries, and from there into the vasa recta. All this we will study when you study the histology, the whole histology. Okay. Then it drains into the larger vein. This is called as the interlobular veins. From there into the arcuate vein. Same names, just like that of the arcuate artery vein. Interlobar arteries, interlobar veins, and from there into the segmental veins, and from there into the renal vein. Okay. So this is the whole journey of the blood into the kidney. Now coming to the lymphatic drainage. Lymphatic drainage is drained through the lateral aortic group of lymph nodes. These are the group of lymph nodes which are lateral to the aorta. This is the aorta, and here you can see the kidney, and there are group of lymph nodes on either side. So these are called as the lateral aortic lymph nodes around the origin of the renal artery. As you can see here, this is the renal artery on either side. Around that, there are group of lymph nodes. So the kidney will be draining into these lateral aortic group of lymph nodes. Coming to the nerve supply is by the renal sympathetic plexus. There is plexus of nerves which are coming and they will form a plexus that is called the renal sympathetic plexus. The afferent fibers that travels through the renal plexus enter the spinal cord in the 10th, 11th, and 12th thoracic nerves, as you can see here. So they will enter into the 10th, 11th, and the 12th thoracic. Okay. So these are the renal sympathetic plexus. Now coming to the some features of the renal glomerulus. As I said, you will study more in detail in the histology part. I will just give you a brief introduction to that. Okay, the functional unit of the kidney is the nephron. Okay, this whole structure is called as nephron. Okay, this is the functional unit of the kidney. So each nephron is associated with capillary beds, as we have seen. So there will be glomerulus, as well as around that there is a peritubular capillary plexus. So here you can see here, this is the peritubular capillary plexus. So this is the glomerulus here, and here is the peritubular capillary plexus. The glomerulus is both fed by the artery and drained by the arteriole. As I said, so it is supplied by the arteriole and drained by the arteriole. This is called as the afferent arteriole, and which is drained, which is called as efferent arteriole. The afferent arteriole, which arises from the, as we have already seen, from the interlobar arteries, that is the feeder artery here, which is the feeder vessel, which is giving the afferent arteriole, close to glomerulus, and drained by the efferent arteriole, receives blood through that has passed through the glomerulus. Here it goes, and then filtration will take place, then it is drained by the efferent arteriole, as I said before. Now coming to the second part, this is all about the kidney. Okay, so this was about the kidney. Now we'll go to the ureters. Okay. So after the kidneys, if you have any doubts still here, you can just ask me. Any doubts here?
No, Doctor, clear.
Okay, I think there are no doubts. Now we'll go to the ureter. Till now we have studied the kidney. Now we'll go to the ureters on either side. So ureters, what are these ureters? These are nothing but the muscular tubes, long muscular tubes. Okay, as you can see here, these are long muscular tubes transporting urine from the kidney into the urinary bladder. This is the urinary bladder here, and here is the kidney. So the in the nephron, where the filtration will take place and the urine is formed, that will be carried from the kidney into the urinary bladder. So this is the function of this long muscular tubes called as the ureters. The length is almost 25 to 30 centimeters. They are very long tubes, almost 25 to 30 centimeters. They begin at the continuation of the renal pelvis. So this is the renal pelvis, okay, which divides, as we have already seen, into major calyx and minor calyx. So this is the renal pelvis. From there, it continues as the ureter. So the beginning of the ureter is from the renal pelvis. Course of this renal pelvis, it descends anterior to the psoas major muscle. As you can see, this is the psoas major muscle. So it descends anterior to the psoas major muscle, opposite the tip of the lumbar transverse processes. So behind that will be the transverse process of the vertebrae. Okay. It crosses the anterior to the bifurcation of the common iliac artery to enter the pelvis. As you can see here, it crosses the bifurcation of the common iliac artery into the external and internal common iliac arteries. This is the common iliac, it divides into external and internal iliac artery. This bifurcation of the common into external and internal will be in front of this ureter. So in front of the ureter will be passing in front of it. Okay. So it will be the course of the ureter. It begins from the renal pelvis, runs in front of the psoas major muscle, crosses the bifurcation of the common iliac artery, and then enters the bladder. How it enters? Again, it has a very unique feature when it enters the bladder. It runs downwards and backwards to the level of ischial spine. It curves forward to open into the upper lateral angles of the base of the bladder. As you can see here, it will open into the bladder. It runs downwards, then it opens obliquely. It will not open directly straight, but it opens obliquely like this. Comes down, then opens like this. It runs obliquely for almost 3/4 inch in the wall of the bladder before opening. As we said, it will open obliquely like this, running into the wall of the bladder, then opens. So this is very important for the prevention of the reflux of the urine from the bladder into the ureters. Okay, so this has as a sphincter. Okay, so this oblique nature of opening is very important for the ureters. Now coming to the constrictions sides of the ureter. This you should know, because as you know, there are constrictions because of the renal stones. Sometimes the renal stones, or we call it as kidney stones, might enter this urinary bladder, and when we pass a dye, the dye will show that there are constrictions. Okay, so you should know before you study the pathology, these stones and their abnormal presentation, you should know the normal constrictions, because as I said, if there are stones, there will be also seen constrictions. So what are normal constrictions? Okay, there are two constrictions. One at the pelvic inlet, the site of crossing of the common iliac artery. So when it is passing here, crossing this junction between common iliac and the division of the common iliac into external and internal iliac arteries. So here the one constriction will be there, and the second constriction will be at the opening of the bladder. Some books also mention at the beginning of the ureter, the pelvis, where the first constriction is there. That is called a uretropelvic junction, where the first constriction, this is said to be the second constriction, and third, when it enters the wall of the bladder, that is called a third constriction. Okay, so there are three constrictions. Also, according to some books, it is two constriction. I think is okay. Okay, so these are the normal constrictions. Any other constriction apart from that, then it is called as the pathology. Okay. Now coming to the arterial supply of the ureter. Because the ureter is a very long structure, it cannot be supplied by one artery. So it is supplied by multiple arteries. As you can see here, in the upper part there, the renal artery is giving branches to the ureter. In the middle part, it is the gonadal arteries, the testicular arteries in male, and the ovarian arteries in case of female, which will be giving the branches to the ureter. Then in the lower part, lower upper part, so it will be the common iliac artery which will be giving. Then as it goes down, then it will be the internal iliac artery, which is a branch of one of the branches of the common iliac artery. This the internal iliac artery, which will give branches to the lowermost part of the ureter. So it is supplied by multiple arteries. In the upper part, it is supplied by the renal artery. In the middle part, it is supplied by the the gonadal arteries as well as the common iliac, and in the lower part it will be by the internal iliac arteries. So this is all about this lecture, which is about the kidney as well as the ureter, the anatomy of the kidney and ureter. If you have any doubts regarding this, you can ask me now. Any doubts?
No, it's clear to me, doctor. Thank you.
Are you there?
Clear, doctor.
Thank you, doctor.
Thank you, doctor.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. So we'll stop the lecture here.